This is Securing Success, where we get to know the professionals that make up the cybersecurity sector. Today, we're talking with the CEO of Myrror Security, Yoad Fekete. Yoad, thanks for joining me.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Um, let's just jump right in. I am so interested in your take on application security. I've been recruiting in security for about 10 years. I've seen trends come and go, but one real constant has been AppSec. So many companies are trying to solve the problem, and it would be good to hear from you about how the threats are evolving in application security and what Mirror is doing differently to solve the problem.
So I think if we'll take, you've mentioned 10 years ago, I think the biggest evolution was cloud, right? Um, Everybody can do everything faster without thinking a lot. If we'll take it back, and I've been there. I used to do like stuff from the cable level up to the application level, um, which I think was a privilege, and I super enjoyed it. And then as you build the infrastructure, right? Part of the application was to actually build the infrastructure that made you very conscious to security. But since that was abstracted for us when cloud was introduced, these days you need to think a lot more about security because it's not a part of how you build the whole infrastructure like bare metal wise. So I think that's one of the biggest involvement. And the second involvement is a good one. Um, we got automation. So we can integrate procedures and checks across all of the pipelines. So today, when you ship software, it's no longer like once a month and it's a manual stuff. It's actually an automated process, CI/CD, how we call it, right? So you just need to understand and kind of do threat modeling. And then it's easier to kind of put gates and to make sure you don't introduce anything like that's malicious into your software delivery lifecycle. And the second thing that changed, we have so many more vulnerabilities a day, which is crazy. And that's a big challenge today. It creates a lot of noise, and I think the biggest problem is how do we reduce that? That's taking 10 years back. So you had vulnerabilities, and it was the time of the check marks and white source and sneak time to kind of shine. But today it's kind of the opposite way. We still have vulnerabilities, but how we reduce them, not how we bring more, right? How we get informed on more vulnerabilities.
So, well, you mentioned some of the bigger names in application security, maybe legacy players, right? Especially check marks. Um, what what are you introducing with Mirror that's going to, I don't want to say solve the problem. I don't think that'd be fair for anybody, but to address the problem more efficiently or better?
Um, yeah, so I think first of all of the companies that I just mentioned, they're doing innovation, right? It's just a bit different than when a startup does that. You have a lot of already legacy code, then you have a very complicated system that you need to integrate innovation into. So I think everybody, including those companies, are trying to solve that. But what we do is that eventually we say, okay, they're doing what they're doing very well, really very well. I've been a user, but what's missing, and in my from my experience, I've been at Microsoft before starting the company, and we've been hit by the SolarWinds attack, and we had a product, never mind the name, but we had a product, and it didn't catch any of those malicious packages that were out there eventually. So I was looking for something that can actually take care of, first of all, detecting CI/CD attacks, malicious packages. And the second thing is the triaging. My team spent about 50% of the time on triaging vulnerabilities. And the tool we had was very good and it's pinpointing those problems, but it didn't tell us okay, this is actually is used or not used here. This is the context. This is how it's running in the cloud environment. So I think that was a missing part. That is a very big part that's missing today. Um, and maybe the incumbents will do that. I believe they understand that. But their client base is very big and they have a lot of other trouble. And we do see a lot of acquisition on that term. So we've just seen Sneak acquires Helios for runtime prioritization. So they understand that it's a
Yeah.
need as well.
You mentioned shipping software, how it's become fairly seamless, but and correct me if I'm taking this into a wrong context, but that brings up the notion of supply chain, right? That's entered the collective dialogue, especially when talking about vulnerabilities and application security. Um, how do you see those categories? Are they one and the same? Are they something of a parallel? How do you describe it? How do you address it?
Yeah, I think I'm kind of lost in that matter. So when we started, software supply chain was kind of the big thing, and everybody, all of the existing players started, changing the headline on their website to software supply chain security. And I think slowly we understood that people, security professionals, they don't want another category. They're tired. They're looking for consolidation. So then they kind of try to take the software supply chain paradigm and push it back to some ASPM, some SCI. It really depends on the product, right? And then you kind of borrow that term into your own product, but the category didn't really evolve. So we do have ASPM as a category, well, at least by Gartner and products we see, which is well defined today. But I think software supply chain has vanished and it's been, kind of eaten by those other categories, which I think is a good thing. We need to stop, inventing things unless they have a reason. We can define, everybody knew that you're using dependencies in your code. It's not a new thing. Um, SBOM, as much as people like to think about it as a very kind of new term, it isn't. It's been around for a while, so every software, every tool that you use showed you what you're using in your bill of materials paradigm. So now you need to export it to your customers. Great, that's a 5 minutes process. It's not we don't have to get crazy about that and open new categories and kind of create headlines, right? So that's what I see with the kind of involvement in the market. So people still try to stay with we have an ASPM, we have SAST, we have SCA, we have our CSPM, DSPM that's been swallowed a little bit by CSPM as well. We'll see. I think it will take 2 or 3 years to kind of see where we stand in that term.
I appreciate you saying that. I mean, just as an aside, right? We track funding and acquisitions for cybersecurity vendors, and I'm always struggling how to categorize it. When we first started, I just put whatever the company said that they were doing. And then when we wanted to consolidate it and provide actual data of where market segmentation was going, I had to consolidate all that. And it became the Wild West, and it sounds like security professionals such as yourself agree. It's too much, it's hard to classify, and it's too segmented. So I appreciate you bringing that up.
How did
Um,
you how did you kind of categorize that? Did you take, Gartner categories or whatever the company decided to put the company in its specific box?
yeah, so I try to reduce the categories to about 25 across cybersecurity. And what I would do is because people read this outside of very technical folks, right? People see it and they want to understand, okay, what does a company do? I want to understand what a company does. I'm not an engineer. So quite simply, I would go to a website, I would sift through a lot of the product marketing materials that was on there and just say, what basically do you do? Are you fixing vulnerabilities in code? For me, that's AppSec, right? Is it a simple detection and response tool instead of all the different detection and response terminologies, NDR, MDR, et cetera? I'd call it detection and response. So people can understand basically what it's doing, right? We're not trying to delve into that technical aspect there. We want to give people an understanding of where the market is headed and what volume of companies are focusing on what volume of segments in the industry.
Yep, agreed.
So
Thanks,
I
appreciate it.
take a non-engineering focus because I'm not an engineer and just like, hey, what do you do? That's what we're going to label you as.
I think that's super important by the way, also for messaging. Every startup struggles with that. So you need to bring somebody, that you like yourself, security, security companies, security categories, but eventually, as you said, I'm not an engineer. Tell me what you do. How do I understand what you do?
Yep.
So that's that's art, definitely.
And it's hard because companies such as yourself, I'm sure, want to figure out a way to differentiate what you do, right? And some people may have the idea that the best way to differentiate yourself is to get technical and get a little crafty with the messaging. And maybe that's a way to go about it. But at the same time, you might want to simplify it so people understand what the differentiators are. And so it brings me candidly to my next question, right? You saw a problem based on your experience in cybersecurity, and you know, I know that there are a lot of entrepreneurs, startup nation in Israel, right? Um, but it takes guts to start a company. For you, beyond what you described earlier, you saw a problem. How did this start? At what point do you go, yep, I think I can solve this problem and I'm going to go make a company to do it?
So I'm a coward. I would have to say I'm a coward. And I spoke with Oman, which is my co-founder today. We've been working together for the past 10 years, and I told him about what I'm experiencing at Microsoft, and he was like, I have an idea to tackle that, which is special, and I got excited that I actually got goosebumps, but I was at Microsoft. I was super happy. I had the best team. I was paid very well. It was safe, it was a very safe zone for me. And and I have to admit that I didn't know back then like what's happening in the security ecosystem. And specifically, I didn't know what's going to happen, in a year in terms of the economic situation and the war here in Israel. A lot of shifting has been happening. And he told me, let's do it. And it took me a couple of more months, and he has kids. I don't, I took it with my wife and she was amazing. Um, and eventually I told myself, you know what? You truly believe in the problem. Just let's go and validate that. So we spoke with people, and then I understood that it's a pain. It's an actual pain. And when would I have, the opportunity to do that again? So just took a leap of faith. And my manager also was amazing. So just stepped out of the comfort zone, but Oman had to push me a little bit. I have to admit, it wasn't that easy.
Well, I think you're humble. You say you're a coward, but a true coward, Yoad, would say no, thank you. And you took the leap, like you said. Maybe someone had to push you, but that that tends to be the story a lot of the times, right? You mentioned, of course, the war in Israel. It's the elephant in the room. You being based in Israel, uh, how has that affected your day-to-day business operations? Has it had an impact at all? And if so, give people an understanding of what it's like to operate a business in this climate right now.
So I think like compared. lower, if we kind of double click on our company, which is small, we've been hit really seriously. So my head of DevOps was at the Nova event, managed to survive. Um, and and then my operation manager, her partner was killed at that party as well. And then I have two people at the front, my SDR and then one of my senior developers is still out there on reserve duty. Um, I think the first month nobody worked, especially for a company like ours. We don't have any US go-to-market team which can, happily continue working. So it was split into two parts. One is kind of, okay, how do we deal as myself, how do I deal with the situation? Um, and then how do I support, my people? Because nevertheless, those that's been directly hit, um, everybody didn't have, the kind of sense of work, right? We've been attached to the news 24/7. And I think it took us a month to begin the initial recovery, even the initial recovery. And until this day, we haven't, fully recovered, not in the business terms of things, right? Because this is going great, like business wise and calls and the product side, but there's still kind of sense of sadness in the air. And because until everybody, like all of the hostages will be released, and on both ends, that I'm sure that the innocent people of the Gaza Strip, they want to live their life peacefully as well. And I have an interesting story, by the way. So I've been reached out by a small company from the Gaza Strip, and they do software development services. And they offer the services, but we're a full house. And we've had the conversation, I think, 6 months ago. And I remember my co-founder Roman, he told me, no, what would happen if we'll hire them and they'll start a war? And I was like, well, it's an actual question. You understand it? It's crazy, right? And we have three Ukrainians on the team, so we know what is it like to hire remote developers that have war in their country. But that's nothing even similar, I think, in that case. And I sent this girl a message, and I told her, I told her, I know we're on opposite sides, um, but I hope you and your family are okay. And she didn't respond for, I think, 2 months. And then she sent me a message, and she was like, thank you, like where the family is okay, and I hope you're okay. And that kind of gave me a bit of relief. There's still a chance that one day we'd be able to live here in peace, both countries, because we're fighting for nothing. That's kind of my, and I don't want to irritate anybody because I'm on reserve duty myself. Um, and and again, as I mentioned, there are hostages, but this has to end. Just has to end. It's crazy.
I got to tell you, I did not anticipate the conversation going in this direction, but I think what you said is so important. I hope people can watch this and and hear that message, because before the war, even though there was obviously a conflict between the two sides, you had two business people just trying to go about their lives, and you really see the toll on just everyday life. And it's pretty amazing to me, um, being pretty removed, being here in the United States, that um, both ends. I mean, she got back to you at after 2 months, and both ends are still, responding to messages, figuring out how they're going to conduct business because eventually life will go on. And the strength to do that is, again, I don't have that experience. I don't know how you do it. So, yeah, I mean, wow. Um, what do you plan on, right? So you're obviously impacted. You're on reserve duty. You've had a real human impact with people on your team being, the worst has happened to them. How do you wake up in the morning and say, well, today we're going to plan the go-to-market strategy and we're going to plan to cut through the noise. How do you mentally do that? And then what's the plan for Myrror in general?
So first, you disconnect from the news. You try to, because I have, again, employees on the front and friends on the front, and myself as well, not on the front, thank God, but still on reserve. Um, you speak with the team, and you tell them, and it's not a cliche. You tell them part of this is bringing the economy back up. It's important for the country, it's important for your family, it's important for everybody, and of course for the company. But yeah, the company, I'm saying it like explicitly. It's not the first priority, but our taxes mean a lot for what we do for the economy as well. And I've repeated that three times a day, and they hate me for that. But again, I think they could resonate eventually, right? It took a while, and we're in a different place now. Even those that admit it directly, they're amazing. They need their time, they need their kind of space, but they they're doing the job at least as good as they've done it before what happened. So I'm very privileged for that, and we're moving forward like rockets here. So the team, while we're speaking, and it's late night here in Israel, the team are working like crazy because we have three important POCs next week, and customers expect us to deliver, and we will. And we will deliver because there's no other chance. So that's how I see Mirror. We get a task, we set a time, and we deliver. That's it.
So when you talk about the fact that you have three POCs, clearly that is a big challenge that you've overcome. Forget what we just talked about, just as a startup. With so many startups in cybersecurity, you were able to accomplish that. And then you add on all the other factors going on around you. So first of all, congratulations on moving things forward. What's your thought process on how this continues? Do you have a timeline on what you want to see from a go-to-market standpoint, whether it's expansion into the US, as you mentioned, that's not existent today? What's the plan that you are willing to share publicly on where you want to see Mira go in the next few years?
Oh yeah, definitely. So the plan is to in the upcoming year to expand both product and go to market wise. I'm planning to open an office in the States, and hire full go to market team, uh marketing, sales, of course, over there. And the intention is to, again, do what we do today on a scale, because when you just start your business, it's all about founder-led sales, right? You know better than I do. And then you want to take that, once you figure out the process and when you have the product market fit you've been imagining, and now you need to expand that and to scale that and to delegate. That's my role. I need to delegate, but when I'm delegating, I need to make sure that the people I'm delegating to know exactly what to do, because it's very clear.
So you are essentially, this is your first real go at something like this, right?
Yep.
You have never scaled a go-to-market team in the United States before. Where do you start, right? I mean, I don't need the full business plan, but who do you lean on? How do you plan for something like that because it's so new?
So going back to the delegation part, so there are people like yourself that, eventually they have the expertise of hiring the right people or, hunting the right people, right? Because especially for security, you can't just grab a person from the street, even he or she has the experience in sales or go to market or marketing, whatever it is. You need to target the right person because in that stage of the company, it's as crucial as building the right feature or product or engine. If you miss that, it might kill the company. So my advice for my experience is don't try to do it yourself. I mean, need somebody that knows the right people and knows how the process works and how to get to the people that can actually accelerate your business. And that this is what I'm thinking. I mean, feel free to kind of correct me, expand.
Well, so clearly you can utilize different resources to attract the talent that you want to hire. I think the most important thing, and this is just based on my experience, seeing startups cycle through leadership and teams a couple times until maybe they get it right. It's really understanding what type of person. You can take advice from a guy like me, and I'd be happy to give you my perspective, but my perspective is limited to where I sit in this industry. And so, to me, it's important that you talk to as many people as possible, to your investors, to your peers in the marketplace, people that are willing to help you out and understand how do I design the target profile of sales leader or marketing leader that I need to hire at this stage in the game. Um, and I would say that, I'm sure that's crossed your mind. I'm positive it has, but that's the most important thing because a recruiter like me, for example, we can give you suggestions when we talk about it, but ultimately our job is to go get you what you want. And it's so important for startup founders to know, or at least have an idea of the type of person, the type of experience that's going to make an impact in such a competitive market.
Yeah, I mean, I agree, but I think one thing that you can do, and you probably do, is sometimes a person can speak to you and tell you, I need, I don't know, a VP sales, right? And then you ask him, okay, great. So how many sales directors do you have today in Israel or wherever you are? And he says zero. Okay, so how do you know you need a VP sales at that moment? So it's a conversation, and if you know to ask maybe the right questions, because not all the time the founders know what they need. Sometimes they get great advices from their VCs and advisors and angel investors, etc. But sometimes they miss.
Everybody misses, everybody makes mistakes. If you don't make mistakes, you don't learn. I
Yeah.
started my business at the end of 2018 after acquiring the cybersecurity practice that I built. And I've made mistakes. But figuring out how to minimize the damage and continuing to move forward is important. And so taking advice from all the different people that have a vested interest in your success, whether they just want to help you or they're invested in Myrror, whatever the case may be, that's going to be important. That way you can take what I tell you, for example, on the talent side and measure it against what someone else is telling you, and you can try and validate it just like you would validate technology and vulnerabilities and risk.
Yeah.
Um, Talking about the VCs, you raised money at a time where it was it was not as easy as maybe in 2021 or early 2022 to bring money in. what are you seeing as a founder? What interest level are you seeing from investors? If you're willing to talk about it, what conversations are you having about the next step, and what challenges or how easy is it for you to have those conversations?
Well, I think for seed stage, it still relies on having the right idea, the right timing, the right team, and doing validation. If you got any, revenue, that's killer, of course. For A rounds or growth rounds, that's a different story. On taking a year ago or 2 years ago, you would get like 3 design partners and that's it. You get your next round. Today, it's a $1 million question today,
A
give or take,
multi-million
right?
dollar question.
Yeah. So literally a multi-million dollar question.
Yeah.
So, some VCs will still look at, traction or growth, but a lot of them will say eventually the ARR is the most important metric. And we've just seen the chart of the amount of money that was put this year, and you can see that I think it was nothing compared like to 1 year ago and a couple of years ago. Um, and shooting myself in the foot, but I think it's a good thing because um, you don't want to get to your A round and just then understand that you don't have a product market fit, um, and you don't have an easy way out. I don't want to waste, $20 million to my VCs before I prove that, my product is very much needed and I can scale the sales and, get their return back and also provide value to my customers. And that's very hard to do when you have a lot of money and not a lot of traction.
Well, I really agree with you. It's something I've said publicly, even in an article I released on my 2023 vendor funding report. It's a good thing. And so you mentioned that the funding went down. According to my tracking, 2021 cybersecurity vendors raised 20 billion, 2022 14.5 billion, 2023 8.5 billion. So about a 40% drop from 2022 to 2023. But there's been more funding rounds, lots of seed A and B rounds. So there's an interest. And again, I think it's a good thing that some of this is happening. People are going to be more scrupulous on, all right, who are we investing in? What technology are we putting out there? And, there's been so many instances where we've placed people in organizations and they come out and say, hey, great cast, great funding, but customers don't want this right now. And lots of money has gotten wasted. So you're focused on product market fit, making sure you're making good use of VC money. That's a trend that is happening in the market. And the fact that you have eyes on that is pretty good, right? I mean, you know the market you're playing in. You're not going in saying, I have the best thing since sliced bread and we're going to win. You're putting a lot of thought into that. So I think it's incredibly important. A lot of founders, if they don't have that mindset, they better. And I see good things for cybersecurity. I also think maybe 20 billion in a year in 2021 was a little excessive. Maybe we're
Yeah,
leveling out right now, right? Maybe 8
yeah,
to 10 billion, 5 to 10 billion annually invested in startups is where we're going to let off, but we shall see. Um,
definitely.
we've talked we've talked a lot about business, the direction you're going. You've clearly shown the human side, but this is got to be a stressful engagement for you, right? Just forget all the peripheral stuff that's going on for just a minute. Taking millions of dollars, proposing to investors that you want many more millions of dollars to execute on your plan, that's a lot to deal with. So I see a lot of musical instruments in the background, but I'm curious, what do you do on your free time to escape? Just
So yeah,
how do you manage it?
yeah, so my background is my therapy. I can't say I'm doing this as much as I want to because I mentioned my VCs expect me to execute. In order to execute with little money, and so I mean, not to insult, we got I mean, $6 million is not a little amount of money by any means, right? But it's still we're a small team, and that means I'm working 16 hours a day. So sports, I think it's super important. So that's an advice I can give any founder. Don't give up on that. So I'm on calls all day and I'm sitting all day, and it's not like 9 or 8 hours a day. So never mind it doesn't matter when I'm finishing the day. I always find something that I can do, whether it's just weightlifting or just going out for a run. It clears your head. And the second thing is music. Just found anything that you love to do, right? For some people, it's sports. For other people, it's their family, and for other people, they have their special hobby. So for me, it's the music. That's my kind of my escape path. And of course, buying stuff on Amazon. That's always a relief.
Ah, I am so guilty of that. Last night after my kids went to sleep, I said we need a couple things, and that kind of commerce is just so easy.
So easy.
It's dangerous but convenient.
Yeah.
Um, you've given anybody who watches this discussion, you've given people a lot to think about, both on a business level and a unique personal level and experience. It's been a good conversation. Anything else you want to talk about with respect to security or Mirror, anything like that?
No, I think we covered everything, and I just I want to make sure we're focused, and then the person that just heard that on 1.5 the speed, so enjoy that, and doesn't he or she doesn't say enough with that already, right?
I agree. But a big part of this is that I'm not just a recruiter. You're not just a co-founder in a cybersecurity company. We're all human beings. Everybody's dealing with challenges in life that they have to go through. And to show that and be so open with that has been really great. And so I've enjoyed this discussion, and I sincerely, you and I are going to stay in touch. I sincerely look forward to seeing what's next for you. And maybe we'll do another one of these after you get your A round and start expanding into the United States.
Hopefully, and I appreciate it, and you definitely summed up the main thing. We're all humans before we're anything else.
Excellent. Yoad, great to have you on. We'll talk again soon.